Hey guys, it's Lauren Yates from Rave here, and today I am privileged to be with Australian singer and songwriter Diesel. Hi man, how you going today?
I'm good, I'm really good.
Oh, I know you've been very busy, so I appreciate you coming on the show.
It's a blessing, being busy, I'd say, yeah.
And now you just get to sit down and chat.
This is probably
How
the most
privileged.
Relaxed interview I've done this week anyway, so.
Good, I like to have my interviews nice and relaxed. Welcome to Rave It Up.
Thanks for having me.
I know I've been trying to get you on the show for a while, so it's great to finally have you on. And since this is your first time on the show, we'd love to get to know you a little bit better and start from the beginning, because that only makes sense too, right? We kind of really want to get to know how you got to where you are today.
Sure.
So you come from a big family and your dad was a saxophonist and you're surrounded by music growing up. So I'm guessing that, is that where you found your love for music?
I did.
It was just always playing in the house? And
Strangely enough though, the guitar wasn't present in the house. I mean, the guitar music was, but not the actual guitar itself.
So when did that come about?
Well, my eldest sister, she's right at the end of the family, and she was kind of like my second mum, I guess, when you have a large family like that. Well, we left her behind in the States, not by like just left her behind.
Goodbye.
She was in nurses training college, and she had a folk guitar. But by the time we moved out to Australia, there wasn't really anyone else in the family that was that dead keen on getting a guitar. And so my dad would, and being a woodwind player, my dad would naturally kind of lean more towards those instruments. Like he would travel from Albury, where we first lived, down to Melbourne and go to like big music shops and buy musical instruments, bring them home the same day, get up at like 4 a.m, drive, do the whole drive, and come home in time for dinner. And it'd always be like, what's he gonna bring home? And I guess my 5-year-old, 6-year-old voice wasn't quite strong enough to say, hey Dad, next time you go to Melbourne, can you get a guitar for me? So it just didn't happen. But I watched all these other things come into the house, like Fender Rhodes pianos and Fender PA, a flute, which my sister ended up, he bought it for himself. It was a bit of it was a bit of a Homer present, but my sister ended up grabbing that, and she ended up getting a master's degree on that at the Victorian College of the Arts. So
congrats to her.
That was a fruitful thing. But yeah, the guitar just didn't happen. So by the time we moved again to Arizona, a lot of moving around, it was a nuclear kind of family by then, just my sister, my brother and I, and all the other older ones that all sort of spread out and doing their own thing. I still really wanted a guitar, but it was actually my elder sister who sent a cassette of someone that she was rooming with at the Victorian College of the Arts, and her roomie was a cellist, and she said, check this sound out, it's so beautiful. Just her playing cello solo on a cassette, and I did feel the same way. It was like, wow, that is a haunting sound. And lo and behold, the public school, which I was designated to go to, which is very unusual for a public school over in the States, or here for that matter, to have a string program, because usually it's like trumpet, euphonium, and one other instrument, and maybe the recorder. But this had a fully blown like orchestral thing. It was a brand new school, and so I went, okay, I'll go for the cello. It was got nudged into it in a nice way. So I had something with strings basically, but it still wasn't a guitar. So I would do the cello pieces and follow the cello, regime or whatever, but in between I was always sort of flipping it and trying to play like little guitar things. And of course the tuning is completely different. The voicings are completely different. So that made it a little, well, I had no reference. I had gotten my hands on a few guitars, so I knew that they were like worlds apart, but cello is closer to a bass, I guess.
Good place to start.
That's the next step. Was my brother, older brother again. He was hovering around the family home when we got back to Australia again, and he was about to go over to Europe to work with the circus, as you do, and he bought an amp and a bass guitar, like a great, like proper Fender precision bass. And so he left that with me, pretty much. Said, you can play, go for it, have fun with this sort of thing. But now I had a cello, electric bass, but still no electric guitar. So that happened around 14. My brother and sister, older, were doing part-time jobs, and they scraped together a few pennies, and
Oh,
My parents were a bit like, no,
He doesn't need another instrument.
7 years on the cello, and that's his proper instrument. And there was a dude across the road. He was a lot older than me. I think he was when I was about 14, he was like 16 or 17, which is a big deal at that age. He had a guitar, and I would go and like sort of sneakily sort of take it away and have it over at my house, and then about maybe a day or two would pass at the most, and then he'd come over and grab it back, kind of a little bit grumpy, and I'd sort of do that again. And this went on for about a year, and so finally I got my own guitar, and yeah, the cello. Well, my private tuition teacher, she just kind of took my dad aside right in front of me. It wasn't like secret or anything. And she just said, "Look, I can tell he really wants to play the guitar, and I can tell he's starting to play the guitar because his hands all starting to shift around, and it's like I keep telling him no, keep it like that, and he's doing this, and so just let him play the guitar." And so kicking and screaming, as you would as a parent, I think, because you put so much investment and time and money. My dad used to take me every Saturday morning to play with the Western Australian Symphony Orchestra, the youth orchestra, I should say. That's a big difference. So he'd spend a lot of Saturday mornings with me, and just sitting in the car waiting for me to, do my thing. And that's like any parent, you don't want to see him just like suddenly stop something. So, but it didn't take long, I guess about a year and a half of me looking through the Sunday papers, and I was totally premature. Like I was not ready at all to join a band, but because my hands were so nimble, and from playing the cello, which is a bit like boot camp for a guitar player, I just got on the thing. And this is the electric guitar my brother and sister gave me. I already had the amp, my brother had left that, so suddenly I can make these big, loud, noisy jams in the house and just like get the neighbors really ticked off, which is what I did. And it's all simulation at that point, I've seen it on TV, I've heard the records, now I want to do it, So yeah, I had like scraped together some money. I went and bought my first pedal, which was a Boss yellow overdrive pedal from the local, like wasn't even a guitar shop, it was like an organ shop down the road. And they literally had like two pedals. It was the distortion, and any guitar players are watching this, you'll relate to this. They had the yellow overdrive or the orange distortion. And I went, distortion, nah, I'm not sure I like the sound of that word. Overdrive, that sounds good. So I went for that. Then I just started banging away and getting the Sunday paper on a Saturday night and looking through the wanted ads and just calling up people and being an annoyance, basically.
And wanted to get some gigs.
This is way before social media, obviously, so that's how you would find people, through the wanted ads. And I would make the contact, and then the wheels would pretty much fall off every time when they saw how young I was and I didn't have a car and all those sort of things. It's like, well, you're really young, but I can see you really, but
come back later.
You can't drive yourself to the gigs. No, it's not going to work. But finally, my brother would come with me on quite a few of these. In fact, I think he came with me on every one of them because he was the one that was taking me. And he started speaking up and saying, look, I'm his older brother. I've got the car. I will, make sure. And they were like, they'd look at each other. And finally, one group of older people that were all in their mid-20s took me on, and I was, like 15. So
wow.
And that all sort of sprung from there. And then one of the other people that I met through the Sunday papers, again, that we hadn't really gotten anything for him, but he was about 21 or 22. He sort of came in, he was like, oh, you got in a band, did you? I'll come and check it out. And so he came and checked that thing out, and he was like, right, and he just masterminded it right there on the spot and just like caused a mutiny and just like got rid of the two singers and jumped in the band, basically. Just said, okay, I'll be having this, and just like put himself in the band, which is pretty funny. And so that became what was my first proper band in Perth. Was called Innocent Bystanders, and we recorded 2 singles. One of them went to the #1 on the independent charts, at that point I was just playing guitar and singing a bit. I wasn't the front man, I was the guitar player, and everyone else was a lot older than me. And it was a really good nurturing environment, and we crossed the Nullarbor a couple of times and made 2 singles with one producer by the name of Charles Fisher, and the producer that, Peter, what's his last name? Okay, we might have to research this one.
Peter.
Well, he
knows who he is.
He produced Cold Chisel's first album, so that's pretty epic. yeah, so we were in really good hands, kind of a good starting point. I sort of got to sort of get some idea of what recording was about.
Absolutely.
And,
Just start somewhere.
It was a big deal back then. I think it probably still is for any band. It's like come all the way over the other side of the country and, you know, put down their coins and like record something. So Peter Walker.
Peter Walker came to you eventually.
I'm just a little bit foggy this morning.
Oh.
So yeah, it was and that sort of took its course, and it was actually the singer. As horrible as it sounds, it was actually really kind of his way of probably doing me a favor. I think at the time he was probably seeing, even if he didn't realize it himself. One night we just sort of came off stage and he said, "Just go, you know, like you're fired, basically. Like you're too loud, blah blah blah, whatever." And it was like, well, wow. That's not true. I mean, I play loud every night. We're all loud, blah blah blah. Something's going on. Anyway, he wanted to sort of do a big clean out and start again, and that's what he did. And so that was kind of like a nice, gentle but severe kick up the arse for me, I guess. And the next morning we all kind of called each other, said, "What's going on?" The others in the band, they were like, "Well, I don't know, but I want to, you know, keep going, but not let's form another band." So that's what we did, and that became the nameless band for a long time, because we were just playing one night a week at this tiny little bar in Perth, and we were all a little bit, I was probably not as much, but a few of the other guys were getting a little bit disenfranchised at that point. They've sort of been playing for now I'd sort of laugh at the idea of being jaded at the age of 18. It's just like washed up and jaded. But I'd started at 14, so, you know, I'd been flogging it around, and it was like a bit of a wake-up call. I was like, okay, maybe this isn't the dream. You know, I've got no money. I had to move back into my parents' place. You know, everything I owned, I could move around in 2 green garbage bags. You know, that was me. My life was 2 garbage bags, and I had to sneak back into my parents, just get the cello that had been put in the storage, and take it to the pawn shop so I could get some money, so I could get petrol and guitar strings that week. So, wow. I mean, you know, you could go way, way lower than that. I wasn't homeless. I was being fed. So, you know, let's be real about this. But I started thinking, maybe I should have paid more attention to algebra and things like in year 10, and maybe I should have gone to year 11. And, you know, like the whole thing of like, what is going to happen to me now? You know, 21's coming up like that. And
you knew what you wanted to do from such a young age, though, which was a really good thing at school. It came like an epiphany, and
I think it's probably the scariest thing for any parent to hear this from a child, like when they just say, "I know what I want to do." But I really did, and it wasn't like a kind of a smart ass sort of, "I don't need this" sort of thing, but I suddenly felt, I'm not going to need this. And then my whole mind just stopped stressing and feeling like, what is wrong with me? And then I knew what is right with me. I'm like, okay, I have my path. I know what I'm going to do. And I think to some degree, you might not start out with that single-mindedness, but at some point, I think in anything that you choose, you need to have that single-mindedness. Otherwise, you're just going to sort of just flop around like a
you gotta have that straight path, right?
Well, you have to have some kind of single-mindedness.
Yeah. So when starting out, you know, when you're doing those gigs, struggling a bit in the 2 bags of all your belongings, did you also have another job on the side just to help pay bills? Or
no.
So I know a lot of musicians now, they have troubles with that.
I took some part-time jobs way back when I was first starting, like working in a furniture factory, and it was basically one of my best friends from school. His dad owned a cane furniture factory, so he put us in there, and after school, and then I thought, well, you know, I might as well just do this flat out, and it just ruined my hands, which is quite funny. So it's like I was trying to make money so I could, you know, do my thing, but I'd get to the gig and my hands were like just cut up so bad.
You need the hands to play the guitar.
Yeah. Like, maybe I need to look for something that doesn't destroy my hands. But yeah, it wasn't. I always was able to make just enough to kind of like keep the meter running, sort of thing. It was a struggle some weeks. But
made you stronger though.
Yeah, of course. And, you know, but at that point, when we dwindled down to just like 1 show a week, that was when it got a bit tough. But thankfully, someone came and saw us around that time, and quite a few people were like calling, getting my number, and a couple even came around and saw me, because I was back living in my parents, and they sat down with my mum and dad and said, "Look, you know, we think he's blah, 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 and we really want to, you know, take him under our manage." And Dad would be like, you know, my dad was wasn't the easiest person to convince. And he's like ex-Navy, muso himself. He was like, yeah.
What's your ulterior motive?
Sort of kind of like, basically like, prove it, buddy, put your money where your mouth is. And then, it's an old saying, but finally someone did sort of really put their money where their mouth is, and that was Brent Eccles, who was the drummer at the time. He'd come over from New Zealand. He was playing drums with the Angels, and he was, I think, always had a flair for management, and he just kind of, went back to Sydney, but then he started calling me, and the phone calls meant a lot, because it was like, okay, there's someone that said, yeah, you guys are really good. And then, but he just followed through.
They're proving it, yeah.
Because we'd had a lot of smoke blown up our Watusis by that stage by people from all over the world, because this place was right near where the Ent Centre was in Perth, so a lot of people would come there after the show and just gas bag and whatever. It was one of those, like, okay, someone finally looks like they're serious and it's tangible. So he orchestrated the simple but quite gut-wrenching, I guess, was everyone's like, okay, we're all going to move to Sydney. We got here with $93 between the three of us, and there was one still straggling that we would get over later. And it was now I'm having real kind of this literally my booking agent at the time was not in this building, but up the road, and he's still my booking agent. That's Tony Grace, and his job was, he was a junior then. We were all juniors, and he said, it was Brent who said, like, okay, let's put something together for this band from Perth that mean absolutely nothing at this point, but it was a bit of a leap of faith, and they booked like 9 shows a week for quite a few weeks, for like months actually on end. So 9 shows in 7 days. You can do the maths on that. We were doing doubles, and I think on Saturday we would do 3 shows. That was our usual.
Wow.
So we'd start at the London Hotel in Balmain in the afternoon, then we'd go out to the western suburbs, some way out, and do like a support or something, and then we'd come back into the King's Cross to do like a 1:30 or 2 a.m. slot at this place called the Cardoma Cafe, and or the Dark Coma, as we called it, because that's kind of like what U-Head was doing at that point.
I'm sure you slept the rest.
Well, yeah. So Sunday.
Sunday was the sleep day.
No, we'd have gigs on Sunday. Sunday was a gig day. Monday was the day off.
Jeez.
Yeah. So and then it was just kind of like
catch up to you eventually, right?
Yeah. So thankfully things just took traction really quickly. It wasn't like instant kind of, oh yeah, this is like we've hit the pot of gold, but there was just enough traction to kind of keep everyone, kind of buoyant.
Yeah.
And it's about buoyancy when you're trying to kind of get somewhere like that.
Snowball effect. Starts off slow and then
I think when things happen
gets
like too fast, it can be like a little bit catastrophic sometimes even.
Well, you appreciate it more now too, with how much work you put in the beginning stages. Now it's like, good, I've learned my lessons, who not to go with, who to go with.
It all could
all
have
those
gone
things.
Belly up. Though we've seen quite a few bands from Perth, go over and come back, and they'd be like, oh yeah, didn't get to play much. So and so's working in a bakery now, doing the midnight to whatever shift, and blah blah blah. And they'd find out that none of them are doing it in music, or they just come back with their tail between their legs, and that was it. It's like
it's given up on their dream.
You can't try that too many times.
Yeah.
Thankfully,
stuck in the rat race.
It's not so geographical these days or something. You can start a career from anywhere, from Dubbo or any place, Toowoomba or Mount Isa or whatever, and get your music kind of out there electronically and build up a fan base before you even venture out. So that's a big difference right there. And the price of airfares, that's another huge difference. So when you do want to start moving around a bit, because it used to cost like 3 times as what it costs now, and that was like literally 30 years ago. So figure that out.
So you used to drive around a lot?
Competition. Well, there was a lot of driving, absolutely, and a lot of casualties.
Save money where you could.
It was dangerous. That's all I can say. Yeah. It's not a glamorous thing doing drives after shows. It's really dangerous. But let's not go into that.
Yeah. For those who don't know as well, your birth name is actually Mark. Yeah. So how did you come up with Diesel?
That's a good question. Okay, so when we were the Nameless Band, when we started playing, we were just like, okay. I remember someone was actually our drummer called up and said, so and so wants to put us on Tuesday or Wednesday. I think we flipped between Tuesdays and Wednesdays at this little bar at the back of this nightclub that we all knew. It was like, oh yeah, that nightclub, yeah. What, they're going to do music now at the back, okay. And it was this little tiny bar that it was like this big nightclub with DJs and video screens and all that. And then there was a dark long corridor with toilets, you know, male, female. And then at the end of that corridor, there was two sort of more like concertina doors. And behind those was a tiny little area that I think that they reclaimed from the car park out the back, and had like a corrugated iron roof and stuff. And it was called a backstage bar. And so it was kind of like an attempt to sort of like give the nightclub an annex that would catch people if they were like, you know, just wandering around. Oh, look, there's something else back there, and spend some more money at the bar. Maybe a place to just retreat from the pounding, you know, like non-stop DJ action that was happening at the front. So yeah, we were the band that just started up in there, and we were kind of like the first thing that like to kick off in this new little concept. And we just didn't even think, we should get a name, you know. We just thought, no, we're just the band that plays out the back. You know? It just wasn't discussed. And then it was about 6 weeks into it, I think probably even maybe 2 or 3 months into doing these regular things, we all got a routine. I started writing songs. That was a big deal, because I felt like, you know, okay, well, someone's got to drive the thing now, you know. That front person that we had in that other scenario is gone, and that's now kind of me now. So I started getting things out of my dad's record collection, old blues songs, and sort of building a bit of a set, because we only had about 3 songs. So yeah, I think I got to about a dozen songs, and I thought, wow, that's, you know. And then I realized that that's only like, that's all there is. Like, you need more than that. But it was someone, that called up and said, okay, you know, you pulled like 20 people last week. Well done, you know. What are you called? You know, like, I want to put a little ad in the paper. And I thought, oh, okay, wow, it's getting serious. And I just heard someone that had come over, because I was sharing house with a bass player at the time, and he'd already had one little baby and just found out that his wife was pregnant again. And someone had come over, a friend of ours that used to help us. He was just an absolute angel. And would just be there to help, like, carry stuff and lump in. He also did lights, which was pretty handy. And he was over that morning, and he was a cheeky sort of personality, and he just said, oh, little Johnny, because his name is John Delzell. So he made a joke about, he sort of did a
play on the words.
Play on his name, sort of said, oh, Johnny Diesel and his little injectors, meaning his kids, you know. And, you know, I didn't know about the whole truck engine thing until we started touring, and then I'd see signs, you know, diesel and injector repairs and stuff. So, I get it. Every big truck engine is diesel, generally, and they have injectors. Okay, I get it. But I just thought, that sounds funny. And then when she called later, the woman that was booking the room, I just gave her that, because I thought, this will be
funny.
Fun.
Yeah.
When everyone sees it in the paper, they'll go, ha, 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 you know. And that's pretty much what happened. Everyone just giggled and went, oh, Johnny's name, ha. And then just sort of weeks and months went past. The ad never got taken out. And before you know it, we were that. It was just one of those things.
Just stuck.
And because the stakes were so low, it was like, well, why should we bother changing? Who cares anyway, sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's one of those.
We're grabbing a fan base here.
So, yeah, when we got across here, that was one of the first questions our manager or going to be manager asked us was, okay, what's happening with this name? Who are you gonna? And he kind of directed it to me, like, so I know it's named after
Johnny
you.
Diesel.
Yes, it's named after you, but you're in the middle of the stage. They're gonna all think it's you. Are you gonna be able to, you know, go along with that? And I went, sure, I don't know. Of course, you know, I had no idea of the implications, the ramifications of that. So I just said, yeah, whatever.
Thinking nothing of it.
Yeah.
Now to everyone, they think that's your real name.
When the stakes are low, exactly. When the stakes are like low and you haven't made any kind of product with anything written on it. I think we had a T-shirt at that point that someone had kind of, was like a real DIY sort of, you know,
like a fan did.
Yeah. Like printed, like homemade sort of thing.
There you go, start of everything.
So, yeah, we had a.
So there you go, guys. His actual real name is Mark.
A signwriter friend
not
of ours,
Johnny.
Peter Hemsel, who's a signwriter by trade, and he sort of did a drum skin for us and did a T-shirt for us. And that's what we had when we got to Sydney.
Oh, well, you decided to go
It was all
solo
very
in
cottage. It was all
1991,
cottage.
wasn't it?
Yeah, well, we made one album. We got to go to Memphis because we chose a really, I think, probably the right. There couldn't have been many producers, I think, on the planet. Well, there was probably a few, but I think out of all the producers, we picked a good choice. I think because we got really left alone, and as much as that record sounds kind of quite naive and raw and everything, which is totally fine. At least if I listen to it, there is a cringe factor, but I'm not listening to something that was just not us at all. So we didn't get put through the sausage grinder and turned into something that was just not us. I always said it was pretty much, the record was like a gig that'd been recorded and God mixed it. It was like just a really good live representation of what we were live, but I put on record. So that was a good place to start. And I think because we were all fairly, except for the drummer, he was a bit more experienced from doing session work, but I think the rest of us were pretty green about recording. It was like, how's this work, so okay, there's a big room and then some smaller rooms with glass and stuff, and who's going to go where and how are we going to feel each other and blah blah blah. And, he was very sensitive to that and how to set up pretty much as a band, so we could see each other and hear each other. And he put like an esky, or cooler as they call them in America, in the middle of the thing full of beer and said, no one's allowed to go there until you get a good take.
Yeah.
So we were like lab rats.
Motivation.
Just trying to get the cheese. This little mice going through the maze trying to get that cheese.
Yeah. So do you prefer being in a band or solo now?
The band was really fun. It really was. It was. I don't want to sound like lightweight by saying this. That period was fun, but it was a fun thing. But I guess I never, while it was happening, I don't remember ever thinking, how long is this going to last? What am I? It just suddenly one day I think what the real catalyst was the idea of making album number 2 started coming like this, because we toured the world 3 times in some parts, and we'd done the laps around Australia, and it was like, we need that album soon, it's like, and I guess there was a bit of doom sort of, or not so much doom, but pressure, because having the highest selling record by a debut artist of all time, an Australian debut artist, being the highest selling album that year, winning ARIAs, blah, blah, blah. It was, the record company would, like any record company, would be like, okay, let's get another record going, So that machine was ticking over, but I just wasn't feeling a second album. I didn't have the vision like I did with the first one, where I had these songs that I'd written. Most of them I wrote sitting on my sister's spare room bed in Connecticut while I was, working in a convenience store. That's where the legend about the gas station. Closest I got to gas was putting a pole down this tank to measure how much gas there was in the tanks. But I would usually do that about 5 in the morning, when it was the most unbusy. But yeah, it was a convenience store. To this day, whenever I walk into a convenience store at 1 and 2 in the morning when I'm driving somewhere, it's like respect I have for those people that do those jobs. It was coming closer and closer, and I just didn't feel it. I was starting to like really freak out, and then I realized I'm supposed to be a solo artist. That's why.
Because you had a bigger vision for that.
Then I just felt really guilty and felt like I'd let everyone down, of course, as you do. But I had to just kind of, cut myself loose, because I was the only songwriter in the band. And it just wasn't my vision. And I guess, look, people would always go, you should have stayed and made that second album and blah, blah, blah. But, I'll always wonder what we would have done. We did some demos and stuff, but I think, when the record that I made after that came out, people were pretty like, okay, well, this is nothing like the first album. And so people might not have liked it. It looks like they did, because it went number 1 and won an ARIA and Best Male Artist and blah, blah, blah. But I'm sure there were some people that were quite shocked. But I didn't make just like the same thing that I did with the band, but without the band. That would have been a bit, I don't know what that would have been, but a little bit disappointing, maybe. For some
It's your
people.
life. You got to do what you love, and how to think about yourself.
You know,
in that.
I didn't just like treat them like shoes or tires. You know what I mean? Just like replace them, and just like I really needed that. I realized that band and that sound was perfect for what I'd created that period, and then I wanted to move on, and just like I didn't want to have to sort of say to these people that I'm with, like, you need to change, you need to start learning how to do that, and I don't want to hear that anymore. It would have been unfair, you know, to make them try to change their spots.
Just one chapter of your life.
Yeah,
Needed
it was
to
a
move
great
on.
chapter, and you know, I guess a solo artist wasn't to go through that whole thing and become a solo artist at that point after one album is not maybe the usual. Maybe a few more for other artists before they sort of grow into that solo thing. But I'd literally gone from the bosom of a band like almost overnight to like thinking I just want to be on my own. But you know, had someone said that to me 6 years before that, I would have said, there's no way I'm going to be a solo artist, you know, because as they say, you know, it takes quite a bit of like just you know, just all out blind, put the blinkers on and just don't think about it. And then you realize that there's no, very quickly you realize that there's no one else to kind of share the weight of anything, and you're really on your own, which, you know, was a little bit of a shock. But there's gains in that as well. You know, you don't have to kind of like...
You have more control over everything, really, don't you?
Yeah, that, you know, and just going in the studio was you know, so amazing for me to be able to think of things, like think of people and just have them come and play on the record. It was incredible, you know.
Well, you now have your Give Me Saturday Night national tour coming up around Australia from next month, and you're performing in New South Wales, Queensland, Victoria, Western Australia and South Australia. But where are you most excited to visit?
Unfortunately, but I will get up to
one day.
Soon. I'm trying to get up there more and more.
Where are you most excited to visit? New South Wales? Of course you are.
Yeah, no, look, playing it in my hometown, there's always good things about that. It's always nice to, you know, drag a lot of friends and family into the fold. But yeah, I don't know. I just lately, I guess, Melbourne has just been, you know, really. I don't want to favour any town, but Melbourne's always pretty special. They're just the way they love music there,
especially for music,
unbelievable. It's really, it just surprises me. Like on a night where there's 60,000 people, like literally just at walking distance in a stadium. You know, you can still have a full house like right next door, and there's no shortage of love. They love their sport, they love eating, they love this, they love that, but they just the love for music is never sort of like never kind of goes down. It just it stays up all the time.
Well, make sure you rug up cold, especially in Melbourne.
Just been down there, so.
So you know what it's like. Your greatest hits album, Diesel 30, is out now as well. What's your favourite song off the album? What song should we be checking out first
I like the
when
new
we grab
song,
a copy?
mainly because it's new. But yeah, I really like kind of the. It sounds like a really easy kind of, okay, there's nothing tricky about this, and it is an untricky song, but I guess there's a lot of tongue in cheek in the whole like idea of like Gimme Saturday Night. I think Saturday nights are like quite funny when you think about the cliche of every Saturday is so big a deal. And I think for people at work, you know, 9 to 5, or just Monday to Friday,
They live for Saturday.
I get how Saturday is important. But it just always intrigues me being on the other end of it as the performer. It's like, why is this night like a miniature New Year's Eve? Every week it comes around and people get all disappointed sometimes or go too hard or whatever it is. It's just like this, micro New Year's Eve that rolls around every week. And I'm interested also when I go to other countries to see where that culture doesn't really apply, and it's like every night is a potentially Saturday night, especially like Southeast Asia or countries that aren't so Anglo, I guess, that it just doesn't apply.
That's the way to live. Party every night.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating to me. It's just like, wow, there's people living in a different way.
Yeah.
There's no real Sunday coming down sort of or whatever. It's just, you know, it's just days of the week.
Yeah. I did hear your track "I Can't Stand the Rain" was recorded in a farmhouse. Is that correct?
Yeah. No, we did the whole record.
Why did you decide to record it there? Is it for a particular sound, or?
We wanted to just be able to. I mean, studio would have done it too, I guess. But we thought if we go out, the producer Doug Roberts, I think he'd done it with someone else, and he just said, "I can rent this farmhouse for like peanuts, and there's no one around it, so we can make as much noise as we like." This was the beginning of mobile recording where people could like pack everything up and put it in the car, or you didn't even need a truck. Suddenly things got smaller, and that was I guess when the tape machine, as much as I love tape machines, shrunk down to what we used on that, which was an ADAT, which is used video cassettes and was digital. This is before the computer taking that job. Suddenly you can move this stuff around, so people started recording wherever they wanted. Literally, I mean, like there was lots of records in the early 90s and mid 90s that were done in houses and all kinds of places because you could. So it was cool. And yeah, it was good kind of driving out there every morning. And then you get out there and sort of have a cup of tea, and the producer's wife, she would bring in like freshly baked bread, and we just have like bread with honey and butter and then
yum.
listening to the cows just mooing really loud, and then we'd fire it up,
Atmosphere, I love it. You got to.
Yeah, and there was a couple of takes where it'd be like really quiet just at the very end, and you could hear animals out there making noises, and we'd just be cacking ourselves, just thinking we're just part of that,
It's like it's got to be part
Basically,
of the take now.
Yeah, and I guess when you've got all that space and it doesn't matter, like if something was loud, like we were using different amps and things, and sometimes more than one amp, and just to get different tones, we like, what do we do with this? Okay, that's going to bleed into that, so that bleed, all right. And we literally just put it outside the house on the veranda, and then just open the window a bit so we could still hear it. That was our way of mixing things. But a lot of records, in the 50s and 60s, that's the only way they could mix because they only had so many tracks. So they'd have to mix things in the room, literally, like, you're too loud, move back. Okay, you come up here. And there was just trial and error. There was no like putting it all down and then mixing here. It was mixing as it's going
In the
down.
room, yeah. Got to make it old school. Bring
Well,
it back.
that was the first record that I made that was really kind of. By that point, I'd made the first album, which was very much a live album, but with overdubs and stuff. And then I went full tilt into like the whole chemistry set of recording, where I got really, into finer details. And by the time I got to Solid State Rhyme, which I produced myself, it was a real labor of love, bespoke kind of made album with like everything from timpanis to like xylophones and all kinds of things. And I didn't want to use any samples. I wanted to use all the real instruments.
Yeah.
And it was layer upon layer, Swedish pastry. So this album was just kind of like throw it all into the farmhouse, hit record, no getting
so
all
authentic.
And I think when you're making a blues album, well, in my humble opinion, I think
It needs
that's
to be.
kind of how you should be making a blues album.
Good. I just want to bring that up. Make sure the listeners appreciate
You're not
it.
trying to make Dark Side of the Moon. You're trying to capture, whatever it is that the essence of each song that we were attacking. We'd listen to them, and then we spent like a week in a rehearsal room in Melbourne, in a really small little room, and that was kind of like a really telling experience because we did like just primitive 4-track recordings of that, and just got an idea of like, okay, change that bit there, tidy up that ending, and that was that. Pre-production was that was the production, was the pre-production.
I think
when we
everyone's
got in
gonna.
there, everything changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because just having different sounds can be really inspiring. I think when you're recording, like it'll make you do something different. When someone picks up an instrument or plays something a certain way, you just go, oh, I was going to do that, but now that you're doing that, I want to do this. That's how it usually works. It's a cause and effect.
I think everyone's gonna love this album. You gotta go get it, guys.
Well, yeah, it's good to have bits of every one of my albums. I have to say, it's for someone, I'm a little bit of a collector mentality kind of person, and I'd be upset if there wasn't, everything wasn't represented, and I feel like that's definitely the case. Of course, I'd like to have more from every album, but I think it's a thing of 30 songs. It's come into the fold, this greatest hits at a good time where been managed. It's kind of, it's just, it can encompass things really well. Having 30, the number 30.
Absolutely.
Just so
3 decades in the
it just happens
industry.
to go with the 30 years that we celebrated last year of me.
30-year Fang tour.
Off the bus,
Yeah.
You know, when I stepped off that red bus across Australia and it landed in Riley Street, just over there. And
What a trip down memory lane for
Yeah.
you. It must be
Yeah,
coming
it's
here
like-
right
It's
now.
kind of the crossroads of the world, I thought, for a second there, because I was back there then about 3 or 4 days recording up at Rhino on Jimmy Barnes's, B-sides and stuff for Freight Train Heart. So that was pretty surreal. It's like, well, I'm back in the street where the bus dropped me off, but now I'm upstairs in this really cool studio. Wow, this must be where, this is the center of the universe.
I'm loving these stories. Even though you've already achieved so much in your career, Mark, what else can we expect from you in the future? I have heard that you'll be doing some shows in Germany in December with
we're
your
doing some shows
brother-in-law,
over there.
Jimmy Barnes.
Yeah, we're doing some German shows, and for both of us, Germany has actually been where I think the same could be said about Jimmy. I know personally it's where I've done most of my touring in Europe. It's all in Germany, and they're really just, once they get their teeth into rock, they love guitar-driven music, and they've got, as everyone knows, their musical palette is really broad. So there's room for everybody there, and they're incredibly. Just once you've got them for life, basically.
Committed.
Yeah, that's it. Loyal. That's the
Loyal.
word I was
That's
looking
what, loyal
for.
fans.
So yeah, it's good to know that that's ahead. And yeah, I kind of like shedding the light on other people that I'm working with these days because at this point in my career, I feel like I've had plenty of light thrown on me, and I've been involved in a mentoring program with APRA, which has been really great.
That's so lovely.
It's
Paying
really,
it forward.
Yeah, no, it's good. I've been working with an artist in Perth by the name of Bree Clark, and she's just really, really amazing songwriter and singer, and it's good to I think I benefit from working with everyone that I get to work with, and like I said, it's kind of just useless. Big bag of tools that I've got. It's just you're sitting there collecting rust, and if I don't, allow other people to sort of get used to access to that.
Help the musicians coming up.
Yeah, and it's also it's the whole initiative that APRA have taken is really to kind of get some gender equality kind of into the industry because I mean I personally growing up listening to music as a music fan, it wasn't really on my radar as far as I never thought of there seems to be less females than males or whatever, because all the music I listened to seemed to be very much, lots of females, lots of males, whatever. It was, for what it's worth, my favorite singers are all female. So in my mind, it seems like a pretty even horizon, but it was my daughter actually that pointed out some stats that she'd gotten off of an article that Triple J had released last year, and my jaw just dropped when she was telling me some of the statistics. And I think there's a lot of encouragement to a certain age in high school, and then as soon as they get past that age, it's kind of okay, no more of that now. That's not for you.
Get a real job.
It's ridiculous. And,
Yeah.
In all facets of the industry, I think it's important that people get shown that, whether you want to be on stage or be in the studio or be, doing lights or whatever it is, any sort of, or management or, there's so many placements. If you're into the music and into the music industry, there are so many things that you could get into.
I always say life is short. You got to do what you love.
It's a real job.
Yeah.
So that cliche that's still, I don't know, hung over from the 50s or something. I mean, I do acknowledge,
Can't get rid of it.
In my mind, I take into account that the music industry is a relatively new industry compared to other industries on this planet. Yes, but at what point did it become, serious? I think quite early on. But in a lot of people's minds, it's always been that kind of get a real job, like you said. So, but when you look at
I hate it as much as you do.
gross national product, like a country like Sweden, for instance, or any country that has a relatively small population, we have a huge landmass. Someone told me yesterday that we're only seven square kilometers difference between our continent, space that we have in what the US, United States has, which is like, wow, I knew it was close. But anyway, relatively low population, but we produce an awful lot of music. And when you look at just the statistics of what that generates just here in this country, it's real, you know, and the tax, of course, that comes off of people going out and whatever they're spending on. So, yeah, you can tell that I feel very strongly about this, and I want people to know that are coming up that it's a real, you know, industry.
I'm glad you're doing something about it.
You can work in it. Well, I'm an APRA ambassador, so that's my job.
Yeah, get out there and spread awareness of it. Now, we are unfortunately getting to the end of the interview, but before we go, if the listeners would like to contact you or find out what you're up to, where should they go?
I think the easiest way it'll get you to it's a portal that will get to all the other tabs is just go to dieselmusic.com.
Everything's there?
Everything's there. It's a very simple kind of little store we've got there.
Yeah, it's a very good website.
Yeah, it's you know,
easy to follow.
I think my requisite was it has to open on everything and be simple, and just like you know, when you look at other people, sometimes they're kind of like interesting to look at and then they're not functional.
It's a bit too much.
Yeah, I'd love to have mine do more whiz bang things, but functionality is you know, apex, I think.
Yeah.
As people have attention span that is yeah, well, we know, you know, it's like it has to work straight away. Work, monkey.
Otherwise we'll just give up.
That's right. Next.
Yeah.
Flick. Yeah.
Well, you and your team have done a very good job. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate your time.
Anytime.
You have some incredible stories. I definitely want to have you on the show again and chat more about it.
Yeah, it's lots of useless information. I say it comes in handy.
Not useless.
No. It's at trivia nights, that's where I tend to come in handy as well.
Well, there's obviously a lot of stories that people haven't heard, so now they can hear about it and have a real appreciation for you.
At the end of the day, as corny as it may sound, I'm a music fan, folks. That's all I am, and I just happen to like draw a picture.
It's obvious. I like it.
And I put myself in the picture. That's all I did, because I used to do that as a kid. Just draw picture after picture, just page after page of people on stage playing with amps and guitars and.
Because that's what you wanted to be.
Yeah, and then I just put myself in. You know?
Oh, I love that. Well, you're welcome on any time. So if you want to have a chat again,
thank you.
Just hit me up and we'll get you back on. And for everyone watching, make sure to go grab Diesel's Give Me Saturday Night album and go check him out on tour next month.
And some vinyl
definitely
coming
worth
too.
it.
Not sure by the time this hits, but we've got vinyl on its way. Yeah, definitely way before Christmas. I think in a couple of weeks actually. So
I love when people bring that back.
And slightly different to the other versions as well, with different tracks. So
okay, well go to his website and check it out.
Not just the same thing spat onto vinyl. So
yeah,
there's some live stuff on there, which is cool.
Okay, well I'm definitely going to go check that out too. But for now, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.